right, good evening, everyone. It's Monday, April 22nd, 2019. This is the Town of Halifax Finance Committee. We're being recorded by Area 58. On tonight's agenda, mail, meeting minutes, requests for transfer from reserve fund, budget discussion, as may arise, public participation, and adjournment. So under mail, we have a reminder from the Town Administrator, Charlie, about a meeting that the Board of Selectmen is hosting tomorrow, Tuesday, April 23rd at 6:30 p.m. with the Town Moderator, Dennis Carmen, talking about how to make town meeting more productive and allow everyone to participate respectfully. I know I can't go because I teach. Len can't go. I don't know if FinCom doesn't have to go, but Charlie, could we bug you for like a brief update after the meeting if no one comes up? Thank you. There's also a copy of the Municipal Advocate here. I have a copy at home too, which I'll hold on to because it's about recycling and waste removal, which is something that we've talked about in our committee that we'll probably need an ad hoc committee formed at the town level to discuss costs moving forward after this coming fiscal year discussion. Meeting minutes, thanks to Kathy. We have one set of meeting minutes from Monday, March 18th, 2019. The members present were Fred, Len, Bill, and Brad. I wasn't here, so maybe they look fine to me, but I'll give you all a moment to take a look.
Hi, Jamie.
This is really old.
It feels like a while ago.
Yeah.
So it says name in the first paragraph. Do we need to fix that or?
Where? Oh, did I leave the last name off? That's
No,
probably
just-
what it is. I'll put the last name in, I didn't have it. Thank you.
Oh, it's just,
Oh, is this your agenda?
I just, I'm fine with this, as we're ready to vote.
Well, those reading, I could have everyone, I'll still read this out loud and everything, but I can have anyone who wants to read the reserve fund transfer request, which is next on the agenda. They're all paper clipped together, but if you want to just read the description, the invoices on the back, and then I'll talk about it when we get there. In case you want to read the hard copy.
Yeah, this looks good.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from Monday, March 18th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I abstain. Thank you, folks, and thank you again, Kathy, for that. Can I just snap the top page up? And I'll read it out loud and we can keep looking at it.
Oh, they all.
Yeah, they're all the same.
Same.
Yeah. That way then you all can pass the hard copies. Thank you. All right, we have one request for transfer from the reserve fund. Just so everyone has it in the back of their mind, thank you, Kathy, for this. The current reserve fund balance is $26,792.46. Alright, 26,792.46. A request is made for the following transfer from the reserve fund. The amount requested is $605 to be transferred to new accounts. There's not an existing account right now, so the present balance and appropriation for this new account is $0. The amount requested will be used for pay for pest control rats. Why did it have to be rats? At least they were not rodents of unusual size. 407 South Street, town foreclosed on the property in November. Rats were reported by the Board of Health, and the town has a responsibility to minimize the problem. The town did not foresee rats or the Spanish Inquisition, which is why this expenditure is extraordinary and unforeseen for the following reasons. So the amount is $605. The invoice is at the back of the packet there. Are we gonna have a new line item created for pest control?
No, no
Okay.
plans on it.
Okay. There was a multi-platform money, you were right. I didn't read that one.
See, I haven't even seen that, which is out of order.
Yeah, so there were 3
I
in
haven't
there.
seen that either.
It's amazing.
It's the same clip or something.
Yes. Does that, does anyone have any questions for Charlie? I'll entertain a motion to approve the reserve fund transfer in the amount of $605.
Make a motion to approve $605 transfer.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we need to document the amount?
Yeah, I just filled out the like parts that I knew either whether we voted it up or down. So yeah, so all I have to do is put 605, and then you all can. Thank you.
Budget discussion, so thanks to Sandy, we have an updated synopsis sheet, which is the one that's, portrait, up and down. We also have, which is in, landscape form, the updated charity sheet, which is the house numbers for the state legislature, but, Sandy and Charlie agree we should still use the governor's numbers for now, because the House has recently started a debate, right, I think?
This week,
Yeah. So we're still gonna use the governor's numbers, and there's not much change from what we had been looking at before.
No, there's 2 more in the packet though.
Oh,
Alright, Sandy also created a handout for us, 2 handouts about wage and personnel, which is what, we'll talk about tonight under budget discussion.
Yes.
We have Article 2, which is the wage and personnel article. So I guess we can just start going through and then I can talk about the reclassification and stuff when we get there. Because we'll have to talk about it again anyway when we actually get to that part of the article. So if everyone looks in the packet here, the Article 2 that Sandy made for us, you'll see that each section or each subsection right now has Finance Committee recommendation at town meeting under it. So what we'll do is go through tonight, we'll make our recommendations. Actually, section 2. Oh,
Section 1 is this one. Do you want to look at section 1 is being talked about?
yeah,
what
section.
is the 2%?
Section 1 is the 2%.
Okay, so you know, we should just start from the top, okay.
Recommended.
Okay. So we'll take, we'll do our recommendations tonight on this. Thank you. Kathy, there's thank you. Okay. So, section 1 of Article 2 is the 2% across the board increase. So this is the handout that Sandy made showing what the 2% increase would look like for each of the positions. The Finance Committee did already vote to recommend a 2% across the board increase. We didn't have a numbered article at the time, but we voted at 2%, we recommended the 2% increase for all non-union employees, and we also voted the 2% increase for the elected officials. They just didn't have article names at that time. But this shows the implications, the financial implications of that. The next section, which is section 2, to reclassify a certain wage and personnel positions as follows. So I'll read these out and then I can explain as
of wage and personnel members of what went on. Okay, so subsection 2, to reclassify certain wage and personnel positions as follows. A, assistant treasurer from grade 7 to a grade 10. B, administrative assistant treasurer collector's office from a grade 6 to a grade 4. C, wait, are all these
This is how it was printed.
printed right? I don't,
So you can, I have it right here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm like, oh, I brought the wrong bag. And my FinCom bag. Not my wage bag. Thank you so much. Alright. Sorry, folks, I'm gonna, okay. So on yours, I'm gonna talk through the ones we're still going to present and tell me which ones we're gonna pass over. But basically, the reason that we're making modifications now is because we were against the timeline to get the warrant out, and we were still working on interviewing department heads and talking to employees, and that's why we knew that some of these things might change, but we just had to get any that might change into the warrant, so we could always pass over certain ones later if we decided that we didn't have to change them. Okay, so 2, to reclassify certain wage and personnel positions as follows. A, assistant treasurer from a grade 7 to a grade 10. B is going to be a passover. C is a passover.
Hold on. Which one are we looking at?
So we're in this packet. We're in the packet, which has all of Article 2 in it, and we're on the inside of the first page, yeah. Okay, so A, assistant treasurer from a grade 7 to a grade 10, we're going to keep that one. B and C are both being passed over. D, ZBA secretary from a grade 4 to a grade 6. E, planning board secretary from a grade 4 to a grade 6. F, conservation secretary from a grade 4 to a grade 6. G, director of building maintenance from a grade 10 to a grade 11. H, municipal and school building committee secretary from a grade 6 to a grade 4. I, maintenance custodian from a grade 4 to a grade 6. And J is a passover. So just to be clear again, B, C, and J are all passed over. Really briefly, what the Wage and Personnel Board did was I joined the board late in the fall. Kim, who is Kim Roy, was sent as a representative, a member of the Board of Selectmen to the Wage and Personnel. She reviewed all the position descriptions and interviewed the employees. And from that, used a rubric that had 12 dimensions and various scores in each dimension to assess the positions on all those 12 dimensions. I joined having not seen the interviews and not really knowing anyone in town, per se. I only reviewed position descriptions using the same rubric. I didn't look at Kim's scores at all. She didn't get to see mine until we had a meeting and then we compared our scores. We brought in other department heads and other employees that if we had questions about them. Basically, Kim and I then had to sit and reconcile our scores on each position. So after all of that process, last week we had a final meeting where we went through and made sure that these were the recommendations that based on the math we were comfortable with bringing forward. We also went through, so each position got a numerical score. We went through and recalculated what a numerical score would be in terms of the grades. So for each of these graded positions, we did move the scale slightly for what score constitutes a grade 2, what score constitutes a grade 4. And we'll present all of that at the next wage and personnel meeting, the updated numbers on that. I have the rough drafts and stuff here tonight as well. So basically that's it. I don't know if anyone has any questions about the process. Obviously the biggest jump is A, assistant treasurer from a grade 7 to a grade 10. There are both increases and decreases, but Wage and Personnel voted unanimously to move this to FinCom to recommend. We're going to talk about it on town meeting floor. Sandy calculated the financial implication if we were to vote each of these and then all of these together. So that's reclassification effect on the budget, this handout. So you can see if approved and then the difference for each of the positions that we just went through. For a total amount of $13,454.94. That's not to say that the Finance Committee has to recommend each of them. You don't have to take it as a package. We can go line by line and recommend or not recommend each of these. But at least there you'll have the financial implications if this were to be voted at town meeting.
$13,454.94.
Sandy, does this, summary sheet include that?
Yeah.
So what we can do is, move through each of these one by one. We'll take a motion in a second and open up for discussion on each. I think it probably makes sense to take a vote on each one of the ones that Wage and Personnel is bringing forward. FinCom could also make recommendations on the one that Wage will pass over, but there's, procedurally you can do that. I'm not opposed if that's something you want to do. So let's start with 2, subsection A, assistant treasurer from a grade 7 to a grade 10.
We have to make a motion before we can discuss.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, I recommend.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second, so now we can discuss or answer any questions.
So that's a big jump?
Yeah. When Kim and I scored this position, again, we scored it completely separately, and Kim interviewed the person and I didn't. The position description, the requirements of the position, not the person in it, but what that position needs to do. We both scored as much higher, we both scored firmly with like in the middle of what would be a grade 10. It has to do with the responsibilities that that position has for doing benefits, workers' compensation, a lot of things that expose them to privileged and confidential information, have them acting as a representative of the town, interacting with different entities. So that was a lot of the higher scores on that come from that sort of what's the worst thing that could happen if this person messed up at their job. And for someone who's handling benefits and workers' comp, the financial implications and liability are quite large. That was one of the major reasons why the score was so high.
What was the rubric again?
So the rubric was the one that's been used, I think it's 1993 or 1982. It has 12 dimensions that goes from education, informal experience, accountability, independent action, initiative. So it really tries to assess across a spectrum of different things so that different positions can all be measured, even though, you know, folks who are doing electrical work are doing something different than someone who's working as an admin assistant, but you're still going to receive quote-unquote credit or scores based on different elements of your job that require more or less expertise or risk to them.
Who produced it?
That rubric, was
They
that
had,
the?
they had an outside consultant work with Wage and Personnel back in the early 90s when they did this. I wasn't here, so I don't know the name of the consultant. It's not the same person who was here a couple of years ago. Yet a similar but different system, that system is not being used.
Okay. Any concerns about it being an outdated?
The thing that helped, that I felt comfortable with is because I make rubrics and stuff for a living, is that the fact that Kim and I, without talking to each other, scored really, really close on each of them means that I think it's a valid tool for someone who knows a lot about the different positions and someone who just went off position descriptions. I mean, it was easy to use, and I'm thinking from the perspective of Wage and Personnel is really supposed to be a 3-person citizen board. So I was looking at it from like, okay, 3 citizens who maybe don't interact a lot with town government, would they be able to use this and read position descriptions and accurately assess? So I personally felt really comfortable with it. It made sense to me. That's just my kind of perception of it.
How does it tie back to the grades that we use here? Is that what was used to build the initial grading system
Yes.
for the town?
Yeah.
So
So what,
obviously it's been modified in the last 25 years because
Yeah.
positions have been regraded
Yeah.
during that interval. So a position that might have been at grade 6, 25 years ago might be at 7, or a position that was at 8 might be at 10 or 11 at this point.
so what I did was I took all of the new scores that Kim and I had reconciled, so each position had 1 score now, and I calculated within each band the mode, the number that repeats the most frequently, the average score, and then also like median scores to see where numbers were kind of clustering. And based on that, we refit the bands around it so they still had even intervals in the middle, which is sort of the tightest between like 4, 6, and 7. There's larger bands for the higher ones like 10, 11, 12, 14. So we did move where the numbers, like what aligns to what grade, but I think it better fits in with the scores that similar positions are getting.
So assuming that these pass, so these positions go from a X to a Y. Are there any concerns? I don't know anybody from the town except for the people sitting here.
Yeah.
Are there any concerns that the individuals that are in the role currently won't qualify for the new role, that their personal capabilities or education requirements or anything like that? Does any of that change?
No, and the big thing is when the role is next vacated, that these will be the minimum requirements that the incoming person has to have to complete it.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Are there any
Yeah.
minimum requirements that, as a result of an increase, that the current individual wouldn't meet?
I don't think anything would have,
I don't believe so.
no, none of the ones, because what we really cared about was saying, like, formal education especially. So if you had someone who has a high school diploma but had 10 years of experience in another town, we wouldn't want to put that an associate's degree is required unless it is by statute or something like that, because then that excludes you from ever being able to hire the person with a high school diploma but that's got a bunch of experience. So we made it, we tried to make the minimum qualifications truly minimal so that whoever was going to be doing the hiring would have the maximum latitude the next time the position was vacant.
So these are new job descriptions, or you're
This is
taking?
existing.
Hmm?
They are existing job descriptions.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's what you were rating?
Yeah.
And as a result of that, they're making these recommendations?
And
You're not adding any new
No.
job requirements or responsibilities?
no, and Kim interviewed each of the department heads as well, and some of the folks in those positions too. I didn't see the interviews, so she had position descriptions and in-person conversations. I only had position descriptions, and we scored very similarly, even though we both had different amounts of information. Which is again another thing. I think the rubric is solid for that reason, that we were still able to score pretty, and it also makes me think that the position descriptions were pretty accurate. If even with additional information, Kim came to similar conclusions that I did.
Is there any thought to proposing a step increase, almost like a roll-off in the opposite direction instead of jumping from several grades in a single year?
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is when, because we had this idea or this kind of conversation of like, what if we can't just add like 10 points to someone's score for doing something, because then that would shift, like it wouldn't necessarily, it's kind of like when you get a grade on a test, if you got an extra 10 points, it wouldn't necessarily put you in a new grade level, like on an exam or something, so we wouldn't be able to control if we just assign, for example, a random value to an additional responsibility or something like that. We wouldn't be able to ensure what grade that person would land in. It would just sort of be, now they're a 9 or not. We actually don't have a 9. We just have 6, 7, 8, 10.
So what I'm saying is it's a tough pill to swallow. Is there a way we can do this over time instead of immediate?
I mean, if we did things over time, then I don't know how to, if what we're doing is rating the position descriptions and saying that what this position does requires this amount of money or equals to this.
What I'm trying to
score.
set up for is the obvious comment that the people took the job at a specific grade, they're going to be doing the same amount of work, and now we're bumping them up several levels. That's the comment and the question that's going to be received. So
I think for that position specifically, the scope of the work, given things like the Affordable Care Act, HIPAA, those sorts of things that were exogenous or external to the town, that's been layered onto that position because of what that position already does. I think that was a big thing. Like when I was looking, me personally, as a member of wage and personnel, I'm not speaking for the board, when I was looking at that position description, the stuff that federal statute places on that, and like the burden and the liability it places on that position, to me is an expansion of what that original position was that couldn't be controlled by the town. Anytime you've got a mandate like that, that position, same thing, I mean, who knows with the stormwater stuff or with any other kind of mandate like that, if a position changes that much, it wasn't the town that did it. And we're also well aware that the town could vote it down.
yeah,
They
well,
know.
I half like that answer because that's true, but isn't
Yeah.
that an increase in scope or an increase in or a change in a job description, which we said it was not? So we're arguing against ourselves.
Well, the thing that we're assessing is the most recent job description. So when this past year, department heads were asked to submit the position descriptions, that's the ones that we were reviewing. So whenever someone was hired, the position, I didn't look at the position description that person was hired under. I'm only looking at it now because if that role were to vacate tomorrow, that's how we would have to hire the next person, which is why we're making sure that things like education qualifications, experience, additional certifications, whatever, were where they needed to be if that kind of hire needed to be made. But I think that position in particular, like I said, because it deals with benefits and insurance and workers' comp and so many things that are very outward facing and deal with like the liability, especially for a mishandled claim or something like that, is much bigger than other positions would expose the town to. And that was one of the things that position scored really high on, was the level of accountability because of the increased liability that they have. Because I know that it's a massive jump. And I know, and like I said, when Kim and I both scored it, our scores came out really close on all the same dimensions, and I was actually surprised because I wasn't like looking at the total or anything until I got to the end, and I'm like, wow, that definitely had more points than I thought it was going to have at the end of the day. But
So what's been added to the list of responsibilities again? OSHA, you said?
That's what she didn't see, so they haven't looked at what the when hired job description versus the current, they just look at the current and grade it.
so, for example, the Affordable Care Act, HIPAA, health insurance, privacy, portability, or whatever. Those were two of the big ones that added additional responsibilities to whoever it is that's handling insurance, whoever is handling benefits. And this position happens to be the one that's taken on the workers' comp.
I would suggest we try and find out whether any of that was in the description of the hire.
Well, it couldn't have been.
It was too
When
recent.
we were dealing with, if you're, OSHA, for instance, is just in the past year that that's become a requirement for municipalities. HIPAA didn't exist back in '92, '93. What else have we talked about? Oh, well, the
ACA was
Affordable Care
2010.
Act obviously didn't exist back then.
Yeah. And the total difference, or what this would cost, is $5,610.57.
I have a question about, you're going from a grade 7 to a grade 10,
Mhm.
but the lowest on a grade 10, according to this chart, is 59,000
On the 2% chart.
on 2% chart.
That's because that amount is based on a 40-hour-a-week position,
Oh, yeah.
and this position is a 32-hour-a-week position. So if you look on the chart,
Yeah, no, it had an hourly rate.
right, the grade 10A
Calculated
would actually be going to a grade 10A, which will be an hourly rate.
Right.
So it's prorated for 32 hours, not 40.
And the other thing I did notice, and I think I know the answer to this, the director of building maintenance, he was at a step 6, and now he's gonna go to a step 3.
No, he was at a 10 and he's going to an 11.
Well, I know what he was
No,
saying.
within the
Oh,
grade.
oh,
Yes.
At 6, 11, 3.
Yeah,
But as opposed to,
Right,
so your salary charts, I'm used to seeing them where if you were maxed out in grade 10 and you went to grade 11, step 1 would be a little bump to
well, grade
grade
11,
10, step 6,
yeah.
but that's
Grade
not the
11,
case.
step 1 would be below what he's making at
Yeah.
grade
Right,
10.
that's what I mean, so it
And
doesn't,
that's one of the things that is still to be looked at with
Yeah.
wage and personnel is
I would
is
imagine
the
you probably put
differences,
them in
but-
whatever step would be commensurate.
right, but I'm just used to seeing these
Yeah.
in such a way that if you went all the way across at this grade,
yeah,
if you were gonna get a grade bump,
yeah.
you got
Yeah.
step
So-
1,
No,
you
I-
still get a bump in the number,
Yeah,
but
so that's a good point.
that's
So
what it is.
we also pulled information on a wage study for the 10 benchmark towns, but we literally finished the reclassification stuff on Friday afternoon, this past Friday, and wage and personnel agreed that we wouldn't have enough time to do justice to a true salary study. We're gonna pull all the information in case folks at town meeting floor have questions about comparing positions to other towns, but we don't feel comfortable moving forward. And we thought that, that honestly, we felt like we'd be springing something on town meeting if that wasn't in the warrant, and all of a sudden we were like, hey, we're gonna redo all the
Salary
steps.
piece.
Yeah.
Well, again, the devil's advocate to that is how do we know that a 7 isn't being paid commensurate with a 10 in other towns?
Well, quick look thing, I mean, again, we didn't break it down by hourly rates and things. That quick look, nothing jumped out, but what we did see are, and Sandy can speak far more articulately to this, the differences from one step to the next aren't necessarily even. We know we have to go through and redo that, but we've also already recommended a 2% increase, and then these reclassifications, and we also didn't want to give all of that to town meeting at one time to have to swallow a 2%, a reclassification, and then for every grade and every step, a complete overhaul of the pay scale.
Why not?
Yeah.
Because we're not ready.
Well, yeah, we're not ready.
Honestly, like.
Well, that's my fear is that if somebody asks that question and we just say we weren't ready, they're gonna question why we
But
thought
the
the
problem with that was it's the
reclassifications.
same argument we had last year and the year before, right?
No, but I think we were viewing the reclassification as separate from the pay scale stuff, because the reclassification really has to do with job duties. And is the duties of that position, or are the duties of that position being correctly graded given what that position is asked to do now in the current era? I think we divorced the wage scale stuff from it for now, thinking that that's something we're gonna look at in the next year. And just to also, wage and personnel, which you'll read soon, voted to approve a bylaw where this process has to be done once every 3 years fully, so that all positions get reviewed like this and salaries get reviewed like this every 3 years, rather than this sort of stutter, start, stop that's happened over the last couple of years, this particular process. But we really did want to do justice to the work that's been done that's why we've had so many additional meetings and things like that over the last few weeks, is that we really wanted to, with what the information, the analysis that had been done so far, bring to town meeting what we thought were the most important recommendations to make, and then the next step will be the full salary study. Like I said, we've already pulled data, nothing jumped out at us that was particularly off, but we need to investigate a lot more, because what one position does in one town will not be 100% parallel to what the same position does the next town over.
So you're proposing, on one hand, a 2% across the board raise. And then you're talking about reclassifying these positions. But then you're talking about next year doing a salary study. Shouldn't the salary study and the reclassification go hand in hand?
I don't see, I mean, I see
Because
the
the only
argument
reason
for
I'm
it.
asking
Yeah.
is if, and again, I don't know these people
Yeah.
either, but since we're stuck on A,
Yeah,
the assistant treasurer.
Yeah.
All right, that person's gonna get 2%, no
Yeah.
matter what.
Yeah.
All right, now, you're also asking to essentially reclassify them.
Yeah.
Which is essentially saying their salary is not compatible, so you're doing a salary adjustment here as well.
it ends up functioning as a salary adjustment, although that's not the express intent. The express intent is to bring it into line with other positions. But I see what you're saying.
I know it's
will
not the
result-
express intent,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm just feeling like you're trying to sell two things at once,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, honestly, I think
I
here's.
mean, I'm not saying any of this isn't justified.
Right.
But to say you're gonna do because what happens next year if you find out that whatever we got from, I'm assuming something, I'm sorry. The 49.6 is low. Then what? No, but I'm just,
Yeah.
but does that mean next year she's gonna get, that person that she is gonna get another big bump? Or, or what if you find out that when you do the salary comparison, that salary's on the high end?
Yeah, now we don't wanna bump them back down a grade.
Yeah, you're not gonna,
Yeah.
once you give it, you're not taking it away.
No, and anything would be frozen, like we wouldn't drop anyone's pay. We did pull all of
But
the,
you know what I'm saying? is
yeah. And
I
I mean,
just feel like this
yeah,
document, the reclassification goes right along with the salary study.
I think
Pay study.
I think the reason we split them not only is because we felt like there were certain positions that are truly not being, like, a couple on here are absolutely not at the grades that they need to be, like completely, like, especially Ed. To go from a grade 7 to grade 10, I know is a big jump, but having read the position description and Kim went to the interview and everything, like, what that position is being asked to do is not analogous to other grade 7 positions. And I think that trying to rush a salary study in 2 weeks or 3 weeks means that we're not going to bring the best information in town meeting floor. We're going to have everything ready in case folks have questions like, okay, so what does the average assessor assistant make across different towns? We've got all of that. We didn't think that we'd have enough time to sit down, take all of that, and then make up our own new wage scale based on that, and that wouldn't be springing something on town meeting because this was actually in the warrant, and the salary study was not at all. So that truly would have been a, like, surprise everybody, now we're gonna switch all the steps and grades around. I completely get what you're saying though, that it looks like two sides of the same coin of, well, if you're gonna regrade someone, they're obviously gonna get more money. I think the big thing to point out here is that the folks here regrading and think about the financial implications, they're actually not as severe as folks would think jumping 3 grades would be for this particular position. And the overall total for all of the recommendations that wage and personnel is making is relatively minimal. But like I said, I'm talking from my wage and personnel hat. I'm also with you on FinCom. So I'm just acting as a wage and personnel person now, but knowing that I'm both things, I completely get why and I want us to have this discussion.
If you got somebody with a calculator and they're gonna sit there and me, how come that person just got an 11 or 12% raise? That's what they're gonna say.
It's gonna be.
Well, and I can honestly say, like, as the person who read the position description and used the 12-dimension rubric.
I'm not.
No,
arguing that point.
Yeah.
But is there anybody in this room that got a 10% raise this year?
Well, not even that, it's a two-part equation, we only have one part. Right. That's what's gonna be argued, I believe. And now we're essentially stuck with whatever gets approved without the second half. And that happened now that rolls in every single year, so every year if it's 2 or 3%, whatever's recommended, it's just on top.
How many other positions would there be involved? Total, do you have a handle on that? When you do a true salary study?
You guys did the whole town, didn't you?
Yeah, we pulled data on the whole town. That doesn't mean
Yeah,
though
but not, this is only non-union.
right. That's all wage and personnel does.
Right.
Yeah.
So how many positions do you have a handle on? How many actual positions?
That we assessed.
Yeah. 20, is it 50? Both.
It is. There's some positions that have more than one person in them. But let me see if I have that.
Right, I'm just talking, you're gonna
Yeah.
evaluate a position.
Yeah.
How many positions are
46, that sounds about right.
there? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a handful that you got there.
Well, so here's the big takeaway from this is that because we went through every single position in town, these were the only ones whose descriptions did not match or that were not placed correctly in the grades. And you notice there are also ones where we're asking to go down the grade because the current grade does not match the position description. So it's not all increases in here, there's also decreases.
Well, we passed over 2 of them, so that was gonna be my next question. Why did
Yeah.
we pass over 2 of the decreases and the 1 increase?
Because all of the ones that were listed here were the departments and that we were not able to interview in person before the warrant went to press.
Uh-oh.
So we put everything in there before, with the idea that we didn't want to just write a general, like, hey, changes are coming, and then show up with a huge list on town meeting floor and not have had people had the ability to see them. But quite frankly, wage and personnel has met for sometimes 4.5 hours at a time, multiple meetings a week, to try to crunch and get all of this ready so that we could at least, and knowing full well the voters are going to decide, but we felt it was the fair thing to the town employees to correctly assess their positions and to fairly evaluate it for them.
But you feel like you didn't get to do that with BC and J?
No, we did, and we
Oh.
felt that, so we had those in there as placeholders because when it went to press, we hadn't yet talked to those department heads and we were on the border and we felt like we'd rather have the information out there than pass over it
Okay,
than to not put it in there and, move it differently on town meeting floor.
so you're saying you talked to the department heads after it went to print, and that's
Yeah.
why, and then after. the
Because everything
discussion,
went to
you
print the
determined
first week of April,
Yep.
like all stuff did, and we've been meeting like twice a week
that-
to try
Okay,
to,
and
yeah.
so you're saying A, B, C, and J are, you're passing over because of the
Yeah.
information you received after this meeting?
Yeah.
I got you.
Which essentially means when you went through the rubric, your recommendation was to lower the grade, but after talking with department heads, decided not to lower the grade.
No, is that we hadn't calibrated, so Kim and I had not reconciled our scores at that time. Like, I did not look at any of Kim's stuff and she didn't look at any of mine, we completely blind graded everything. So the ones that we were able to go through and reconcile and talk about and talk to those department heads that we felt comfortable, those were the ones that were like, okay, let's put them here. The ones that we thought, based on the two competing scores we had, that there might be movement on, that's what went into the warrant. So anything that we thought might change, we wanted the voters to be able to see in the warrant rather than moving it differently on town meeting floor, not having it had been printed.
The ones that are being downgraded, are steps gonna be adjusted so they're not losing pay?
Those, the folks in those positions won't be, they won't receive any reduction in pay. It'll be that the next time that position is vacated, that's where we're gonna hire at that one.
Right, but I didn't know if you were gonna, because you have overlapping pay scales and
Yeah.
different, I didn't know if you were gonna adjust their step within the lower grade,
No, I
so it
think,
wouldn't impact their pay.
No, so if it goes down, they're not changing them until the
Right.
is vacant, but if it goes up, they're changing,
yeah,
they're capping it,
Okay, so that's why,
putting four on.
not to get sidetracked, that's why H isn't listed on the reclassification effect,
Right,
because it's not gonna have a net effect.
because
It's
that,
not relevant.
yeah,
Okay, and then I notice, E doesn't appear to be on the reclassification.
is it?
no, well, because planning and,
Oh, because the planning board secretary currently is also the administrative assistant to the building inspector. So she's already being paid at her administrative assistant rate. So it will not affect. We don't have a separate planning board secretary at this time.
but if that, so then if we were to, like, let's say that whoever is occupying those dual roles were to leave and we'd hire two separate people again in the
It
future.
would come in
right.
as a six.
Yeah. And again, those, and I know we haven't gotten those yet, but those were ones where, again, the additional responsibilities being placed on that particular position, that were different from what they used to be because of increasing contact with the public and because of the kind of workload of those particular positions. Those were scored higher by both Kim and I.
Can you explain maintenance custodian from grade 4 to grade 6?
So when we assess those positions, there's two kinds of custodians. There's sort of the cleaning custodian, which that's what we title cleaning custodian, the maintenance custodian.
Right.
The cleaning custodian is pretty much just as it sounds, cleaning only. The reason the maintenance custodian went up is when we, so the dimensions for assessing the positions don't just go through things like education,
I get that. How do you come up with the number,
4 to a 6. You mean?
the dollar figure?
Oh.
How does
it's
somebody
two
working at
people.
grade 4 make $84,000?
It's two people.
That's two positions.
Yeah, there's two people occupying that role.
Thank you. Again, kind of figured, but
Yeah, so there's two
Have to
maintenance
ask.
custodians, there's one cleaning custodian.
Actually, yeah.
and did you say that increase is included in your breakdown or no?
Not on the synopsis.
Not in the synopsis page. I didn't add anything to the synopsis page. That's basically the same one you had before.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to have it in front of you so you knew where we were standing.
So when you enter all those numbers, that's gonna be spread out throughout the whole budget.
It will go into the individual budgets that,
Right.
that they.
Yeah, so our last sheet, we had 19,905 in the black. So take 13,454 out of that. Is that about 5,500 or something? In the black. 65.
So that's really how much you have to play with, 19.
Well, if we add these in,
No, I'm, before any decision on that.
yep, 19,900.
And that still
And that's-
leaves you the cushion that you're looking for,
Yes.
actually.
And it also leaves us the
Substantial.
estimate for the collective bargaining we haven't heard about yet. And it also assumes.
Yeah, there are a bunch of estimates in there
Yeah.
essentially.
It also assumes that town meeting votes up on the resource officer and the bus, so it's the most.
But we also, do we leave room for the additional positions? I think we did. No, we didn't.
We didn't.
No.
No, because that was why we were having that conversation about whether or not on the fly we could change the recommendations, and it depends on the order that we talk about it in. So again, from the wage and personnel, like my wage and personnel hat. Wage and personnel is gonna get up and explain all of this and recommend, and the big reason that him and I both, and I don't want to speak for him, but the sentiment I'm getting is that we want to make sure that the town employees are being compensated fairly for the work that they're doing, that these positions in particular jump out. And I know that in previous years, there was a lot of debate about other positions that got pulled out and got raised. Neither of us were on the board at that time, so we truly did a holistic overview. None of the positions that we're asking to change now have been changed in the last year or two. So none of the ones that were voted up to special, the last year's annual town meeting are on our list now. And we did separately score those, and they scored right where they are currently being paid. I scored them, and I'm in the same boat. I don't know people, and I don't have a lot of interaction with these positions. So these were the ones that jumped out that truly scored where they're not currently being graded. And it seems like a big list out of 46 positions. It's, an eighth, I guess, thereabouts. But we are going to make the recommendation, and we will, again, town meeting could vote it down, finance committee could not recommend, but wage and personnel will still bring it forward and explain how we did what we did. Anyone else would like to join wage and personnel? If anyone wants to volunteer, there's open positions, and it truly does need at least one more volunteer. So there's application available from the selectman's office. Or if anyone else on FinCom wants to be the FinCom representative to wage and personnel.
All right, we got a motion and a second, we vote it?
Alright, so the recommendation A, assistant treasurer from a grade 7 to a grade 10. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Alright, so it's 1,
3-1.
3-1. Alright, D, the ZBA secretary from a grade 4 to a grade 6. Do I have a motion to recommend?
So for all these grade 4s to grade 6 steps, or grades, are there no 5s?
No fives.
Because there is no grade 5.
Yeah.
Just leave a wiggle room or something?
And also similarly on
There's no
A,
grade 9s either.
yeah, there's no grade 9s either, so it's 7, 8, 10.
Back when the system was set up back in 92, 93, they only did even grades 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. That was it. A couple of them have been filled in since then, but we don't have any grade 3s, grade 5s, no grade 9s. And as you all have been pointing out, the way it's set up is that whatever, if you want to invent a grade 5, it would be overlapping grade 4 and grade 6 at the very least. There isn't necessarily a lot of room between some of those two grades that you gotta It's vacant right now.
And the implications, the additional funding for ZBA secretary from a 4 to a 6 would be $757.70. So I'll entertain a motion to recommend D, ZBA secretary from a grade 4 to a grade 6.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? 3. All those abstaining? 1.
Well,
Oh, sorry.
Just, we're going to be asked tomorrow and the rest of the week, and even you all are going to be asked at town meeting, as to the reasoning for the board's votes. So could I get a hint at this point as to, is it a money thing? Is it that you feel all the steps, in the sense of all the work needs to be done, including the salary survey?
That's mine.
That's what I feel too.
Yeah, because we keep saying that we're looking to make sure that the workers are compensated, but without doing the salary piece of it, how do you know if they're actually compensated? It's half the equation. I think it's going to get killed.
I agree.
It sucks that we don't have more volunteers to be able to do the necessary work to do it, but the fact is we don't. So,
It's fine, that's what I need to know.
E, planning board secretary from a grade 4 to a grade 6. Again, that one has no financial impact because it's currently being combined with another position. So I'll entertain a motion on E, planning board secretary from a grade 4 to a grade 6.
Make a motion to recommend.
second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? No abstentions? F, a conservation secretary from a grade 4 to a grade 6. The implication of this would be $1,130.30. I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further questions? All those in favor? All those opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions?
Abstain.
G, director of building maintenance from a grade 10 to a grade 11. The implication would be $1,564. I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed?
Yep.
Abstentions? 1, 3, 1. H, municipal and school building committee secretary from a grade 6 to a grade 4. Remember, there's going to be no financial implication of this because it would be a freeze. Well,
Oh, sorry.
it's okay.
Make a motion to recommend.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Question?
What is the effect of the decrease in the rating?
The person in the position would be grandfathered, so there'd be no effect.
But if someone would be hired in,
When that position is vacated and a new person is hired, they would be hired at the lower rate.
do we know what that delta is?
Probably a couple thousand, just reversing the increase.
Reversing the increase there.
But the only problem I would have with even voting for a decrease at this point, even knowing the person, it's the same thing. Yeah. It's half, still half, even though I like the difference. Personally, because of our current money situation, it's still half, so. If it goes up after both studies, that's what it goes, and that's what I'll recommend if you feel comfortable doing it. But just not that you don't have to vote that way, it's just my,
Yeah, for me, there is no change. The assumption is that it'll be right size next year, so there's no harm, no foul.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? I, maintenance custodian from a grade 4 to a grade 6. I'll entertain a motion to recommend. The change would be $4,392.37 because there's 2 employees in this one position.
So moved.
second.
Any further discussion?
I have one question. So how does this tie to Article 10, no, yeah, 10. With the verbiage change, we changed the head maintenance custodian to director of town buildings and maintenance. Are those unrelated?
That has to do with, so 10 is about, hiring. No, because the maintenance custodian is not the director, the maintenance custodian are report to the director. They're the subordinates of the director.
Okay, so the head maintenance custodian here is the director of town buildings and maintenance?
Yes.
Yeah,
Just a title,
yeah, because,
title
yeah,
change?
we're put, yeah.
It was changed a while ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further questions on I, maintenance custodian from a 4 to a 6? All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Alright,
Just, usually during town meeting, for Article 2, the moderator takes it section by section.
Mhm.
So as an overall recommendation on section 2 of Article 2, you would put the finance committee does not recommend, and then you could let them know that the main reason was because we thought that the whole classification's gonna need to be done, including the wages before the recommendations can go
Yep.
forward. Does that make sense?
Yep, yep.
All right.
right, 3. Under chapter 35, section 7C, replace the following. Upon receipt of a request, the board shall hold a public hearing no later than the last business day in January, at which time all persons interested shall be entitled to be present and be heard. Written notice of such hearing shall be given not less than 2 weeks preceding the date thereof to the petitioner, petitioners, and the heads of departments and employees affected. All proposals must be submitted 2 weeks prior to the yearly hearing in order to be considered at the annual town meeting. That's going to be replaced with, the board shall hold a public hearing no later than the last business day in January, at which all persons interested shall be entitled to be present and be heard. Written notice of such hearing shall be given not less than 2 weeks preceding the date thereof to all employees whose compensation and benefits are governed by the wage and personnel bylaw, and to all department heads for departments which include these employees. All proposed amendments to the wage and personnel bylaw and/or requests on a related matter must be submitted 2 weeks prior to the public hearing in order to be considered at the following annual town meeting. Any proposed amendment to the wage and personnel bylaw or a request on a related matter submitted after said deadline should be considered at the public hearing the following year. So I can answer questions about this if we
Is full number like that?
Or eliminate it once for the uses and the offer for the use.
So do I have a motion to recommend section 3 under Article 2? And then Charlie can explain.
I'll make a motion to recommend Article 3.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Charlie?
This strains out some language that's in the current bylaw that could allow for multiple hearings, and the language is a little bit confusing as to exactly when articles need to be brought forth to the wage and personnel board. So what I tried to do was make sure that we're still holding the annual public hearing, people are still notified about the hearing and such, but it's just, we go through it once, and people understand that if you miss that, you're gonna have to wait a year.
Makes sense.
Any other questions about that? All those in favor of section 3? Aye.
Aye.
Four, under chapter 35, section 11, AC1, replace the following. Step 3, if the decision of the wage board is not satisfactory to the employee, it may be appealed in writing to the board of selectmen within 2 calendar weeks of the date of the wage board's decision or the date on which the decision is due, whichever occurs first. Be replaced with step 3, 1, if the decision of the wage and personnel board is not satisfactory to the employee, the department head, or other interested party, it may be appealed in writing to the board of selectmen within 2 calendar weeks of the date of the wage and personnel board's decision or the date on which said decision is due, whichever occurs first. I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Charlie?
The current language, if an employee had wanted to bring something to wage and personnel, since they felt there was a violation of the wage and personnel bylaw, they can do that, they bring it to wage and personnel, wage and personnel makes a decision. The problem is that the other interested parties might be included in the department head. The department says, wait a minute, wage and personnel change something that I was doing. I think I want an appeals process, because right now the employee, if they don't like the wage and personnel decision, can go to the board of selectmen. This way, other interested parties can do the same thing. You still can go away, you still, the ultimate last step in the town is the board of selectmen, but all parties, not just the employee, have a right to go to it.
Any other questions? All those in favor of section 4?
Aye.
Aye. Section 5, under chapter 35, section 11, AC3, replace the following. The selectman will respond in writing to the employee within 3 calendar weeks of this meeting or hearing, whichever occurs later, sending copies of the decision to both the department head and the wage board with the following. 3, the board of selectmen will respond in writing to the employee, the department head, and or any other interested party within 3 calendar weeks of this meeting or hearing, whichever occurs later, and send a copy of the board's decision to the wage and personnel board. I'll entertain a motion for the finance committee to recommend.
So moved.
Seconded.
Charlie?
So in this case, what I was doing was making sure that all the parties were to be informed of whatever the decision actually was. The board of selectmen was involved in making the decision. It's not just the employee.
Just a curiosity question, is 3 weeks usually sufficient?
Yeah, because the board meets generally twice a month. So,
Okay.
Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
and the other thing is, I think I could count the number of times it's gone to the board of selectmen, the figures of one hand during 24 years ago.
Oh, no.
Can I ask a question? So, none of this has financial implications, so what does the finance committee need to recommend or not recommend stuff like this?
Because under the town's bylaws, the finance committee is required to make recommendations on all articles, even things like the zoning articles.
Because we're a board of citizens, is what I was told previously.
Because what?
We're a board of citizens.
Some of it,
Is it a citizen's perspective?
Yeah, the town I used to live in, this group would have been called the advisory board. Different name,
Yeah, let's say, for instance, uses that.
yeah, different names, same.
6, under chapter 35, section 11C, replace the following. Failure by either the wage board of selectmen to process or respond to a grievance in accordance with this procedure shall be deemed a granting of the grievance with the following. Failure by the wage and personnel board to process or respond to a grievance in accordance with this procedure shall automatically move the grievance to step 3 in this procedure. Failure by the board of selectmen to process or respond to a grievance in accordance with this procedure shall automatically be deemed a granting of the grievance. I entertain a motion to recommend.
so moved.
Seconded.
Motion and second. Charlie?
So if for some reason the wage board doesn't act on it, it will automatically go to the board of selectmen. Under the current bylaw, it doesn't go there, it's automatically granted.
Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
7, under chapter 35, section 12B and chapter 35, section 12, delete the following. The membership of the board shall be appointed by a committee composed of the moderator, a member of the finance committee, and a member of the board of selectmen, said members to be designated by their respective boards. Each personnel board member shall serve for a minimum of 3 years. Section 13, vacancies. If any member of the personnel board shall resign or otherwise vacate his or her office before the expiration of his or her term, his or her successor shall be appointed by the remaining members in the board of selectmen in conformance with MGL 41, section 11, to serve for the balance of the unexpired term. Every member, bless you, of the board shall serve until his or her successor has been sworn in by the town clerk, replaced with chapter 35, section 12B. The membership of the board, including the filling of any vacancy or reappointment, shall be decided by a committee composed of the moderator, a member of the finance committee, and a member of the board of selectmen. Said members to be designated by the respective boards. Each personnel board member shall serve for a term of 3 years, or in the case of appointment, to fill the remainder of the term of the vacancy for the remainder of the 3 years of the term. I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion and second. Charlie?
And this standardizes how wage and personnel appointments are made. Right now, we have 2 different methods. One, if there's a vacancy with a partial term that hasn't expired, we have a different method for when the term has expired. And it's fairly confusing trying to figure out which way we're supposed to be doing it, why we're doing it one way in one circumstance, a different way in a different circumstance.
Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
8, under chapter 35, section 12, replace the following. E, notwithstanding the provisions of subsection A, in the event that there are no appointed members of the Wage and Personnel Board, a member of the Board of Selectmen, a member of the Finance Committee, and the Town Moderator shall serve as members of the Wage and Personnel Board, such members from the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee to be designated by their respective boards. With the following, notwithstanding the provisions of subsection A, in the event that there are no appointed members of the Wage and Personnel Board, a member of the Board of Selectmen and a member of the Finance Committee shall serve as members of the Wage and Personnel Board, such members from the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee to be designated by their respective boards. I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, Charlie?
Under the current bylaw, it's never worked out this way. The moderator is actually supposed to be serving, for instance, right at this moment, in the third seat, along with a finance committee member and a member of the board of selectmen. We've never operated that way. Whether it's Dennis Carr, who's our current moderator, or it was John Bruno before him, for instance, never happened. And it really doesn't make a lot of sense. The moderator has no experience necessarily dealing with wage and personnel issues. So what this does is, as much as it ends up, if we have no civilian members on the board, we'll end up with 2 members, which is what we're doing right now, but it eliminates the need for the moderator to serve. Right now, it's supposed to be 10 meetings and everything like that, and that hasn't happened while I've been here.
Any further questions? All those in favor? Aye. 9, under chapter 35, section 14, replace the following. The board shall review the work of all positions covered by the plan. Such reviews will only be performed at the request of the department head and/or employee. With the following. G, the board shall review the work of all positions covered by the plan. Such reviews to be scheduled so that all positions will be reviewed at intervals of not more than 3 years. I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
Charlie?
I think this is sort of a joint thing between myself and
Yeah.
the personnel board.
Yeah.
That the current language really doesn't set up a system where all positions are reviewed periodically. The proposed language makes that happen.
Any concern about the workload?
Yep.
But what we end up with, if there's no requirement, you end up with a situation that we're dealing right now, which is more of a mountain. Because it's not been 3 years, it's not been 6 years. There have been positions really that have been re-examined for longer than that.
Yeah, I don't know how popular it would be, but I was wondering if there was a way we could stagger it and do like half and half or something.
Well, it's every 3 years doesn't mean that all positions on that third year. I would hope the Wage and Personnel Board on its own version would say, fine, I'm making this up, I've got 42 positions. 14 of them will deal with.
Okay. That's what I was getting at.
I think we, though, as a board, said that all of them should go up every 3 years, because if we do something like the wage study, then it's, because I had asked too, I'm like, let's stagger it, and then the discussion we had was basically if we did that, then the wage thing would always be off from one section or more of the ones we had done.
Yeah.
But if you catch up, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's more palatable to say, well, those are up next
Because they
year.
just did it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what hopes in the next 3 years will be less work for them to be doing.
Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
10, under chapter 35, section 18, replace the following. If the appointing authority for a position approves the temporary appointment or hire of an interim employee for the following positions: town administrator, police chief, fire chief, principal assessor, town accountant, water superintendent, inspector, buildings, library director, head maintenance custodian, health agent, COA director, highway surveyor, town clerk, town treasurer, collector. The salary for that interim employee shall be 10% less than the elected official salary, or 10% less than the step 1 of the grade for that non-elected position, with the following. D, if the appointing authority for a position approves a temporary appointment or hire of an interim employee for the following positions: town administrator, police chief, fire chief, principal assessor, town accountant, water superintendent, inspector of buildings, library director, director of town buildings and maintenance, health agent, COA director, highway surveyor, town clerk, town treasurer, collector. The salary for that interim employee shall be 10% less than the elected official salary, or 10% less than the step 1 of the grade for that non-elected position. I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
And all this does is change the head maintenance custodian text that's there to director of town buildings and maintenance.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
Oh, sorry, did we just,
Yeah.
yeah, alright, so all those in favor?
Aye.
11, under chapter 35, section 24, schedule of elected officials, replace the following: D, town treasurer, E, town collector, with the following: D, town treasurer, collector, E, reserved. I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
So this, you're aware, elected officials don't fall under the wage and personnel bylaw, yet in the classification scheme mentions all the positions. There's a category, for instance, for the school folks, even though they're exempt. And we offer a list of elected officials who are exempt. That's the list, but was it 9 years ago?
Yeah.
Something like that. We merged the treasurer collector position. We're just catching up in the text to be accurate.
Any further questions?
Is this kind of like normal? Is there ever a possibility of it being split out again?
Sure. The town could do that, but it would take a town meeting vote to do that.
We wait 9 more years and.
And in either, even if they did, it's still like the position. Unless they decide to make it an appointed position, in which case, at that point, we'll have to do a grading and all that jazz. But as long as it's an elected position, there's no, in the wage and personnel bylaw, there's no rate for it, and there's no salary for it. That's in Article 3.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Not to be lazy, but can I just move these as printed?
Well, they've got the text.
Why are you doing so well?
I'm like, oh, we have this much water left.
I thought that you were prepping for an auction. Or something.
Okay, excellent, all right.
Sold.
12, I'll entertain a motion to recommend as printed.
So moved.
Second.
Charlie?
So what we're trying to do is to standardize for the part-time firefighters and police officers who work for the town on the holidays, what their holiday pay is. So basically, for the call, if they're working a holiday, they'll just be paid time and a half, not holiday pay per se, but if I'm working Columbus Day, instead of straight time, I'll get time and a half. Even though I may not have worked 40 hours that week or something like that, we're still saying, hey, you're working a holiday, we're gonna give you something extra if you're working a holiday. Because that's what we do for the folks in the unions. They get more money for working any particular holiday. And then for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, we're saying, fine, they're gonna get even more. In this case, they'll get double time instead of time and a half. Because I think there's a general consensus that more people are reluctant to work on those days than the other holidays. Whether it's Columbus Day or Veterans Day or Patriots Day or Washington's birthday or something like
And these are non.
that. These are non-union folks. The special police officers and the call firefighters are part of the wage and personnel classifications.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Actually,
Oh, sorry.
yes, I have a question. So there's two Ds here. What is the first one exactly saying? The first D is saying the double time, right?
Do we need
'Cause-
Yes, because what we're saying is, right now, D is employees required to work on a holiday will be paid for the hours worked plus a day's pay, being or 8 hours. They might technically be working 3 hours or 5 hours, but they're gonna get a full 8 hours of holiday pay. Under the new D, I'm saying, is they're paid for the hours worked plus an equal number of hours of holiday pay.
It says other than Thanksgiving, Christmas,
Right.
and New Year's. So they don't get double time for working Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's?
Yes, we do, because what we've said is,
It's above it.
well, no.
So isn't that-
Yeah.
Just, no, it's not redundant. There are two separate sections. We're dealing with call firefighters and special police officers. If we have somebody who's not in those categories, and they're required to work on a holiday of, other than Thanksgiving, Christmas, or New Year's, you're going to pay for the hours worked plus the equal number of hours of holiday pay. If, let's say, Karen Thompson, who's the administrative assistant over the highway department, is called in on Washington's birthday because it's a snowstorm. She will get that. because that's not her, she's being required to work, normally she doesn't come in. Now, she gets holiday pay under normal circumstances, let's say she's working for
No, she gets 7 hours a day. So for 7 hours.
So, on a normal Washington's workday, she's getting 7 hours of holiday pay. Same as Sandy or myself get 8. If she's required to work, if she's called in to work, she'll get those 7 hours of holiday pay, but also 7 hours of actual work, well, assuming whatever hours she's working, she'll get. If she worked, for some reason, worked 5 hours, sometimes she might even be there for 10 hours. Martin Luther King Day would be another snow day possibility for her. Same thing with our water department. If we do a call out for the staff there, there's a water main break, they will get both holiday pay and for time work.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to recommend 13 as written.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion and second.
Try to keep your notes consistent and just.
Right, yeah. I can answer, Charlie and I can smoke. So what this does is change the bereavement policy between, so it's a lot of text, but you'll see that up top, there were sort of a split. 3 consecutive calendar days for one group of employees, but then there wasn't really anything else. There's now a 2-tiered system in the new bereavement policy, 3-tiered system for 3 days, 2 days, or 1 day, depending on the relationship between the deceased and the town employee. And we based it on, we checked with other towns' bylaws to get some recommendations or some examples on what they do.
And we've tried to make sure that understanding that families have changed.
Yeah.
These family relationships existed 25 years ago, they just weren't necessarily as commonplace. But we're trying to make sure that people understand that a parent may be a step-parent also. I mean, I give my personal example. My kids are 30 and 23 at this point. When I married their mother, they were 7 and 14. So they've been.
You're supposed to know this stuff, Charlie.
They've been. I remember my wife's birthday. I remember in my anniversary. These are the important things. Even if she doesn't want to celebrate, I remember that. She wants e-cards. Very easy marriage, obviously. But in the sense of these days, you could easily be a step-parent for far longer than the original biological parent was in the household. So things that, the importance of taking that number of days off for a step-parent can be as equal as it might be for the biological parent. But that's just an example. I'm not saying it. That's why you'll see more terms in there of the listing for 3 or for 2 or for 1 than we have previously.
We also tried to account for the difference between an employee's family member and their spouses, and what we were really thinking was sort of the burden that would get placed on someone to have to host family and attend services, regardless of their religious affiliation or lack thereof. So we were really trying to think, like, what would the implications be to that person's life for that particular family member passing on.
Just one editorial note, under the 1 day,
Yeah.
we took out the word funeral, we just put one day leave,
Okay.
and took out to attend a funeral because we didn't.
May not be a funeral.
Good call.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. All right. Section 14, I'll entertain a motion to recommend as printed.
Hey, just,
So-
We're taking this out.
Oh, you're taking it out?
Yeah, can you do a second?
Or you're gonna make a motion.
Yeah,
Make it easy on Kevin.
So moved.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, there are no dispatches, we're eliminating the
So
section.
we're.
Yeah. I wonder whether it's no things as finance committee recommendation at town meeting.
Well, yeah.
That might just be a typo, but. Under section 14. So we have a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
No, like, yeah, you're
It
right.
was dismissed.
Section 15,
Well, actually, sorry. If we're removing it,
because they're now regionalized, we don't have dispatchers anymore, we employees, town employees. We pay the old colony their contract fee, and they pay the
so why
dispatcher,
are we voting on it to begin with?
because we're taking it out of the bylaws.
Oh, yes, we are.
Alright, 15, I'll entertain a motion to recommend as printed.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Remember, this is another delete the following deal.
You're assuming they're not bringing dispatchers back.
I don't see it ever happening.
Could always dredge this up if they had to, I suppose. huh?
I mean, it's costing, I think we're spending about 150 right now. We would 250, something on that order, 300, if we ever brought them back, between the personnel costs and then operations.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Alright. Section 16 is another delete. I'll entertain a motion to recommend as printed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second.
And this was language that was put in back when we were doing this back in 2005, 2006. And, it's, anybody who was gonna be at the top step back then is basically language we don't need anymore, so.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Section 17, I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
It's a change in the amount of money that we're allotting for the uniform allowance.
Is this the only department we do that? 'Cause I think
No,
we-
we
No,
will
there's
see
more.
part of that.
Oh, all right, I didn't read any further. Okay.
And we already incorporated this into their, expense budgets, right, Sam? Did we? No, okay. I thought some of them had it included. I thought like highway had it built in.
Yeah, building maintenance has a line.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
some
know
of
that it was
them
this
may have.
exact amount, but it was a big pot of money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember seeing
Alright.
it, yeah. Some of them had uniforms, some of them didn't. All those in favor? Aye.
Did we make a
Oh,
recommendation?
sorry, I'll entertain a motion to recommend section 17.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
18, I'll entertain a recommendation or entertain a motion to recommend as printed.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion and second, any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Section 19, I'll entertain a recommendation or a motion to recommend as printed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any further questions? All those in favor? Aye. Section 20, I'll entertain a motion to recommend as printed.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Section 21, I'll entertain a motion to recommend as printed.
Why we have this, sorry,
So moved.
Second.
why we have this is that this is tied into a grant, so it goes above and beyond the normal 2%. If you do the calculations, obviously, it's more like 4%. But it's tied into a grant that's specific regional.
Do they make changes every year, just out of curiosity?
Doesn't change everything.
Does it change every year?
No, this one hasn't changed for a couple of years.
Is it dictated by the grant, I assume? Okay.
Other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Section 22, I'll entertain a motion to recommend as printed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. So this would establish an internship if we ever wanted to, any of the departments or like the town administrator, everyone have an intern, and we had talked about the undergraduate. If it was an undergraduate student, they get paid Massachusetts minimum wage. If we're a graduate student, because there would likely be someone with more experience, a mid-career professional, they'd go in at a grade 2, step 1 equivalent. They'd still be an unclassified position, but that's the equivalent that they'd be paid. Do you have anything else, Charlie?
No, yeah, I mean, for instance, we have, what was it, we got a state grant a number of years ago, which we never spent, for a board and committee handbook. It's a perfect job for an intern to come in during the summer and put something together for us. We have the money, but I don't have a wage rate. So I wanted to get a wage rate set up, and if my circumstance happens again, we'll have everything set up. What we did do is provide the wage and personnel board with a job description for interns, and I agree with them, the wage levels commensurate with that job description, even though we're doing it unclassified.
It's a cool thing for both parties, especially if we're hurting for volunteers.
Yeah, well,
We
and
need studies and stuff.
one of the things with interns, they're likely getting academic credits, so they're basically paying the credits, and then this also at least provides them compensation for their work, so they wouldn't be having to pay to take an internship.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
So that's the end of Article 2. So basically, the Finance Committee has provided recommendations on everything that we're able to provide recommendations on so far.
If I just want to review, you said yes to everything except for the grade change.
Yeah. And I have in case anyone asks, sometimes people at town meeting do ask, I have the actual numbered votes, like what the numbers were in each, because sometimes they want, and Sandy, I have your copy of this out separate, so I can take it with me. Alright, anything under as may arise? Public participation?
Jean's been so helpful at wage and personnel that we can't ask her to keep showing up. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Do you want to talk schedule briefly?
Oh, calendar, okay, so, we're still posted for each Monday leading up to town meeting, and then Kathy was kind enough to post us for the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, the week of the town meeting, just in case town meeting goes beyond the first day. But we'll still keep in the back of our minds that if there's nothing going on, we'll, cancel the meeting, and give everyone notice if we don't have anything, but it'll likely just be the only other things that we really have to take into account for are the collective bargaining agreements that we haven't gotten the totals on yet.
And also the non-appropriation articles.
Yeah,
I'll make sure you have the text for those.
Okay.
So that one of the coming meetings, you'll be able to make recommendations on.
What are examples of those?
Zoning,
One.
Yeah.
What day is it?
We should have warrants
On
by
Monday,
next meeting,
the
right?
3rd.
We should have warrants by the next meeting. so-
Next Monday?
May, right?
A week from today?
I didn't have it listed as a town meeting.
Oh. Any other questions?
I'll entertain.
Oh.
Oh, I'm good, thanks. I have enough for the journey, but thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:32. I'm sorry, 8:32.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So adjourned.
Hey.
Good night.